What is up, my sweet and spicy people? My name is currypastry, and today I have a few questions for y'all. Question 1. Have any of you ever wondered what it would be like to be vengeance? To be the knight? To be Batman? Because I have. I've actually thought about this way more than probably any healthy individual should, right? Because, like, on one hand, it kicks ass because you got a butler who is trained in war and will also train you in war, but will also do what you want him to do. You have an incredibly vast fortune at your hands from, like, the age of 8 into infinity. And you can also use said fortune to travel around the world and get ninjas to train you. So you can come back and fight like a ninja against other criminals and other ninjas. What I'm saying is I want to be a ninja. What I'm saying is that on the surface, being Batman sounds like dope as hell, right? But then you kind of stop and you think about it for a second, you know? You stop and you're like, well, damn, do I want trauma that leaves me so deeply scarred? I dress up like a bat and then I go around and fight crime instead of using all my money to, like, help people on, like, a more welfare level? And then do I go and adopt a bunch of children and dress them up like brightly colored birds and then go around with said children to fight crime and also inadvertently have those kids be better targets because they're easier to spot? I don't know. It seems kind of irresponsible. Seems kind of fucked up. Seems kind of not my particular speed. But, if y'all are about this life, and by this life I mean enjoying Batman, because I know I sure the fuck am, well then today y'all are going to be getting my thoughts, my feelings for, and my answer to the big question on Batman Cape Crusader. And hopefully the letters will, Cape Crusader will be like right here. Intro. Maybe this will be the intro. Maybe this might be going intro. You watching? Maybe that's what this is. If it is the intro, I'm sorry. It means I was lazy and I didn't want to do anything for the intro. So there it is. But to start off the video proper, start it off right. I gotta let y'all know how I came to love Batman, right? Because I was raised on the DCAU, that's the DC Animated Universe, for those of you who don't know. So shows like Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited. They were all my shit when I was growing up, right? And those shows really made me come to, like, appreciate that version of Batman. Not the incredibly edgy motherfucker we've come to know in the past number of years. And again, I'm not blaming any actors. I think all the actors who played Batman were really good, and I think they did a decent job with what the writing and direction they were given was. But they were all so edgy, right? Except for Christian Bale's Batman was less edgy, but he also talked like this. And he was always really down here and he sounded really raspy. And kind of like he was kind of like, you know, trying to quit smoking, but he also really liked smoking, and that's why he sounded like this. And that has its own host of problems. But for the most part, the live-action versions of Batman have been incredibly edgy. And this version of Batman, the animated version, at least the one that I grew up with, was not. I mean, don't get me wrong. Very cool, very scary, very hard-boiled is, I guess, another way to describe him. But really, what he really was is he was a man who was hardened by all the trauma he went through. But even through that trauma, the thing he values more than anything else is human life and, like, the sanctity of human life. And knowing that if he ever took a human life, he wouldn't be able to stop himself from taking more and more, and then he just becomes the very thing he's fighting, right? And that was, like, even to my, like, 8-year-old brain, I perfectly understood that as a concept due to the amazing writing of the DCAU, right? And the reason I'm bringing up the DCAU is because the art in this show is strikingly similar. So I got my hopes raised, like, sky high when I first saw the trailer for it, right? And don't get me wrong, some of my hopes were met, right? Like the preservation of human life above all else, even though he's been hardened by trauma. Like that idea of Batman, that is here to an extent, if that makes sense, right? It's there, but it's also kind of not. I think predominantly that's probably because this is Bruce's literal first year as Batman, right? The cops don't know if he's real, neither do the criminals. This Batman is also like kind of more focused on catching and beating up. I don't even want to say catching necessarily, because that we'll get into that in a moment. But he's really focused on beating up criminals, and he, don't get me wrong, he still has a focus on preserving human life and wanting to save as many people as he can. But I also kind of feel like he forgets that sometimes. And maybe that's true to Batman in the comics. I don't know. I'm kind of a fake fan. I've only ever read Dark Knight Returns, and that's it. So in terms of reading comics, I don't really read a whole bunch. But in terms of engaging with, like, you know, comic book stuff, I engage with all of it. So half fake fan. But yeah. So I don't know how true this is to, like, comics, where Batman will just kind of forget about saving people sometimes. And forget about sounds bad. I don't know if that's exactly what I would say. It's more like not his immediate thought or focus, and he gets distracted by something that is maybe more pressing. And while that is an interpretation of Batman, and I'm sure if you like that kind of interpretation, you would enjoy this show. It really isn't who Batman is in my head, right? Because in the DCAU, I don't think there was ever a moment ever where he was not trying to save people. Even the villains he was attempting to stop, he would try to save. That's the core characteristic of Batman, specifically in Batman the Animated Series, right? He understands that people are broken, and he understands that broken people do broken things, and they break. And he wants to stop them from breaking other people, stop them from continuously breaking themselves, right? He's a guy who cares about people. And this Batman, it might be because he's early iteration, it might be because this is actually how he's characterized in the comics, I don't know. But this version of Batman in the Caped Crusader doesn't have that same heart, I would say. And there are inklings of it, don't get me wrong, but that's just kind of off rip my initial feelings for that Batman, at least in terms of like right versus wrong or whatever moral bullshit y'all want to put on it, whatever more bullshit I want to put on it, I guess. And for 3, he's mean, and I don't mean like he's mean the way he is in the DCAU, where he's just kind of a little cold. Like he's mean specifically to Alfred, who he calls Pennyworth. Alfred's supposed to be his dad, and he calls him Pennyworth. I mean, I don't understand it, man. And he treats him like a servant perpetually, not like the father figure who raised him. And at some point, even Harvey Dent, which, if y'all don't know, Harvey Dent is Two-Face. Spoilers. Harvey Dent being Two-Face, but before he's Two-Faceified in this version of the show, we'll get to that in a moment. Even Harvey Dent, when he's over at Bruce's house, because, you know, they're bros, they're tight, they love each other. And I don't remember the exact context, but I remember Harvey says, yeah, my parents taught me to treat everyone with respect, even the help. And says it very pointedly to Bruce, after Bruce does some, like, not shady shit, but kind of slightly rude shit to Alfred. It's wild. It's wild. I don't understand why Batman is so mean to Alfred. Maybe it's because, like, he's probably because he's spoiled as fuck. Could be. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But he's mean to Alfred, and I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. Never be mean to Alfred. Alfred is the truest, most real ride or die for Bruce that ever has been or will be. You know what I mean? Like, that's my fucking guy, dog. When I say that's my fucking guy, that fucking guy I'm talking about, that's goddamn Alfred Pennyworth. So yeah, that pissed me off personally, but towards the end of the series, they kind of bring Batman, you know, full circle on that. So he gets better towards the end, but yeah. So that's another thing I didn't like about this Batman. But speaking of Alfred, and hopefully Future Me won't be lazy, and we'll just put like a little picture of Alfred up for y'all to see. But they made him thick as hell, bro. And as a thick man myself, I appreciate that. I love seeing that representation. Did y'all know that Alfred was actually fat in the comics? Because I didn't. Is fat PC? Overweight. Big boned? They made him fat, but it's evidently comic accurate. And it's cool. That's cool. That's dope. I think that's awesome. I think that's sick, and I'm glad that they did that. But speaking of thick, y'all, the women in this show, I mean, come on, dude. I mean, shit. We got Harley Quinn. We got Renee Montoya. We got motherfucking the Penguin is a chick in this show, and they made her thick as hell too. To the artists of Batman Cape Crusader, thank you so much for all the hard work you put into this show, and know that at least I respect you and I love you for it. So thank you. We see a turf war going on. We see a turf war between the Penguin and Thorn, who I've actually never heard of this Thorn character, right? Rupert Thorne, I think, is his full name. Never knew he existed in the Batman canon. I don't know if he does or if he's just a custom character for this. But yeah, so two gang leaders, Penguin, Thorn. Penguin's goons take out a building of thorns, which leads to more gang fights. The Penguin is a chick, I mentioned that, and she is thick as fuck, also mentioned that, which I can appreciate, which I also mentioned. And she has nefarious, very comic booky plans to blow up the police station with a missile launcher, right? Which I like that plan, mainly because it's very old style comic book camp almost, except it's not really quote unquote camp the way you expect it to be, but the actual idea, just the conception of it, a little stereotypically comic book, kind of out of this world insane, right? But very very cool, and I like that. And after a son of hers betrays her to the cops and to Thorn, she then has, first off, the wrong son killed, and then second off, she decides to launch her plan of nuking the police station into action immediately. And I don't know when missiles were created, right? But I'm assuming it was before the 30s and 40s. So escapes, and the Batman he seems distracted, I guess, by the fire and the horror of his own failure. But I think this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? Batman shows up to kick her ass, but he doesn't actually do anything to stop the missile from being launched, besides beating her up. That's what I'm saying about this Batman, right? He seems a little immature in that his focus is beating up bad guys, not stopping the bad guys from doing what they want. Small distinction, but very important, I think, going forward, right? And this series of events does establish a couple of things. Number one, I have here Penguin is a smart motherfucker. I don't know if that's actually true, because I thought about it after I wrote this into the script. I think the Penguin just kind of got lucky. And I think really it's less of Penguin being smart and more of Batman just kind of being dumb. Because if Batman wasn't dumb, he would have just shot a batarang at the missile launcher itself and had an electrical pulse through the batarang to shut down the missile launcher, right? That to me is a very Batman style plan. Because then they can't use the missile launcher, and then he's free to deliver his equal opportunity ass whooping. So it's either Penguin is smart or Batman is dumb, but it's definitely not both, and I'm really leaning towards the second one. Batman also, not the best at catching criminals, just good at beating them up. He 1000% needs to step his game up. But re-up your priorities, Batman. What the fuck's going on? You're the goddamn Batman. Save people. Christ. And then all the cops, this is something we learned that I didn't mention because it didn't seem super relevant, but most of the cops, maybe half the cops, but it looked like almost all the cops were on the take of the Penguin, right? Because they're all kind of sitting in her lounge, which the Iceberg Lounge is now on a boat, and that's kind of sick, and that's kind of gangster, and I kind of want a boat lounge. But that's besides the point. All the cops are sitting in her lounge, kind of enjoying her shows and stuff, and they all seemed very corrupt. And also, I believe the Penguin called a couple of them to be like, yo, make sure my son doesn't... I don't remember all the details. Something about her son, I think, maybe. But yeah, a lot of corrupt cops in Gotham. That shouldn't be super surprising. But that's all just episode 1, right? So let's take some time to talk about some characters for a moment, right? So Harvey Dent is introduced pretty early on, in opposition to Barbara Gordon. So, as it turns out, Barbara and Harvey are both lawyers, right? But unlike iteration of either character, Harvey starts off kind of crooked in the first place. Like, whereas I'm sure many of you have seen The Dark Knight. If you haven't, go watch it. It is still to date the best piece of live action Batman cinema ever. But so in The Dark Knight, Harvey starts off as like a lawyer who stops somebody from shooting at him in the middle of court, and then gets him arrested and sent to jail. He's like super good guy, and then he wants to like run for mayor, right? And he doesn't get corrupted until the two-facedness happens to him, right? But in this version, he already starts off kind of crooked, a little shady, much more about like, oh, I need this collar so that I can look good for me when I run for, as I'm going to be running for mayor soon, right? Barbara, on the other hand, also an attorney, as I mentioned before, but is much more like the classic good guy, right? Always trying to help those who need it. And these two are often like on opposing ends of the court, which can be a very fun dynamic if you are into an arrogant asshole getting put in their place. And in this case, Harvey Dent is that arrogant asshole. So I like that a lot. I like it when arrogant people are taught a lesson, is maybe the best way to put it. But Bruce and Harvey, still besties, right? Still best friends, mentioned that earlier. But both of them don't know each other's, like, secret lives. Like, Bruce doesn't really know how deep Harvey's corruption goes. I don't even know if Bruce knows if Harvey's corrupt. I think he's just kind of, like, keeping the friendship up. A, because he does care about Harvey. But B, because Harvey's, like, a very useful pool of information for Bruce, who is then Batman. And Harvey obviously doesn't know that Bruce is Batman, right? We see that Harvey wants to be mayor. And it seems to be doing a decent job-ish of campaigning, at least initially. But later on in the show, that kind of starts falling off, right? But before we get to Harvey's inevitable fall-off and inevitable kind of crescendo downwards of a character arc, let's talk about Detective Montoya. Hottest detective on the police force, don't at me. But so she's put on a case where an actress has gone missing, right? And Batman decides, hey, I want in on this case. So wherever she goes, Batman follows. Little stalkery, but also kind of what Batman does. And he's often beating her to the punch when it comes to getting information, just given his more persuasive methods. Persuasive here, obviously meaning incredibly violent, but it works. And Montoya is shown to be like incredibly loyal to Gordon. James Gordon's also introduced in the show. I forgot about him because he plays a much more minor role here. But James Gordon is also in the show. Still police commissioner, which is great. Or is he police captain? No, I think he's commissioner. I think he's commissioner in the show. But Montoya is shown to be loyal to him, which means Montoya is likely going to be a good guy for like throughout her entire stay on this show until something incredibly traumatic happens, right? And Gordon is like a strong moral compass for Montoya and also for like the rest of the police force who follow him, right? And while chasing the lead of this missing actress, who they assumed was kidnapped, she being Montoya, encounters Clayface, who has the girl hostage, and then she, being Montoya, gets captured by Clayface, but Batman then shows up, saves Montoya, beats up Clayface, while Montoya saves the actress with help from Batman, and then tries to arrest Batman, the man who saved her, which is kind of dumb in my head, but I get it, right? She's got to do her job, and you can't have vigilantes running around just quite yet, at least not until, they become more established, right? Batman obviously escapes because what's Montoya gonna do to the motherfucking Batman? What's any one individual person gonna do to the motherfucking Batman? Nothing. The answer is nothing. They're gonna do nothing to the Batman because the Batman's a fucking ninja. But Montoya confirms to Gordon that the Batman is in fact real, right? So that all of what I just told you was basically episode 2, right? So we learned a couple more things. We learned a couple more things in this episode, right? Montoya, dope as hell, tight as fuck. Just a woman living in a fucked up town, trying to make it a little less fucked up, which we love. And Batman does care about people, even if he lets bad guys get away, right? Obviously he cared about Montoya enough to save her, and then save this actress, right? But still, yet if you have the choice between one or the other, always save people, right? I'm behind that 100%. But Batman seems to have the choice made for him, at least in the Penguin situation, and later on you'll see another situation. I'm not going to get too much into it, but Batman does seem to care about people, albeit less than maybe I was initially wanting. And so from here, I'm just going to talk about some of the bigger plot points that I found interesting to save all of us some time, because I've been recording for 21 minutes, and we are 2 episodes in. So, rapid fire. Number 1, Catwoman shows up. I'm going to dress up in this really gaudy costume like the Batman, but I'm going to do crime instead. Loved her episode. Love how she tries to get more man out of Batman. You know what I mean? Like I feel like she's the only villain who's really stopped and like talked to Batman. You know what I mean? Like really trying to understand the man more than the Batman. Just me personally, but I really did like that relationship. I think it was them like kind of setting up their hopefully future romance, even though at least in this episode it was very one-sided. Number 2, Harvey realizes he's losing in the polls, so he makes a deal with Rupert. Effectively, Thorne owns him, right? So whenever you make a deal with the mob boss does own you until you pay back your debt. Number 3, Detective Montoya is given charge to hunt down the Batman via task force by the mayor. Well, technically she's given charge of the task force by Commissioner Gordon, but the mayor tells Gordon, hey, start up a task force, cast the Batman, can't have vigilante justice going around our town. Number 4, Detective Bullock and Flass, who are the 2 predominant people that were in the Penguin's Lounge, are shown to be working for Thorne. Surprise, surprise. And let an incredibly dangerous criminal on the loose, I believe Firefly or Firebug, one of the 2, whom they end up killing in front of their cop friends to be recognized as heroes, but only after they let him loose. And because they ended up killing Firebug, they are given charge of the Batman task force. So the criminal let loose by Bullock and Flass starts a giant house fire, name's Firebug, makes sense, and Gordon and the Batman must work together to save some kids from the building before it goes completely up in flames. This is where Gordon learns that Batman might be a good guy, which is kind of sick. One of my favorite things in the Batman mythos is the Jim Gordon-Batman relationship, and just having kind of like the sprinklings of that starting here, when they're saving kids, I mean, that's great. I'm also a big sucker for when kids are getting saved. I like it when children don't die. Call me cliche, I think kids shouldn't die. Crazy. Number 6, Bruce goes to therapy. His therapist, Harleen Quinzel, whom we see is a friend of Barbara Gordon and is also super into Montoya, which, can you blame her? I mean, hello. But notably, seemingly nothing is crazy about her. She doesn't even have like any ties to the Joker that we can see, which I really like, because I think both those characters are strong enough to where they can exist independent of each other, right? So I really like that the Joker's not here, and I really like that she's not crazy. Oh, jokes, actually, she kidnaps billionaires who she gets in therapy and gets them to admit that they're shitty people, and then she kidnaps them and she forces them to like sacrifice large amounts of money to charity. So like kind of like Robin Hood, but she also dresses up like a jester for some reason, and it also seems to be like really kinky, but like not. It gave very weird vibes, very weird vibes, right? But she seemed like super duper into it, and she was, I think, like hypnotizing these billionaires and forcing them to act on like their most base instinct. It was insane shit. It was fucked up shit. It was really truly wild, but it was cool. It was a very cool twist for her character. Still evil, which I think is appropriate, so it kind of makes sense, but not evil like I'm doing crime for myself, except for maybe the dressing up like Jester and then hypnotizing them and keeping them in like her own secret lair. But you know, the type of like Robin Hood criminal where she takes and gives to charity, because she doesn't keep the money for herself, which I think is very notable, right? Because if she had been, I think maybe the character would have been less satisfying, but the fact that her intentions are good, I think speaks volumes to what her character actually is. That's just me though. Batman and Barbara eventually stop her after realizing it's her who's doing all these crazy things, but not before her big-ass building self-destructs and Harley Quinn supposedly dies. Batman almost dies, but is saved by Barbara, potentially further setting up a romance there. I've never been a big fan of the Barbara Gordon and Batman romance, but that's also only when Barbara was like Dick Grayson's age and Batman was Batman's age. Here they seem to be about the same age, so I don't have as many issues with it. Though I would prefer a Selena Kyle romance. That's just me. Harley Quinn, who is not dead, calls up Montoya and apologizes for standing her up. And promises she'll be back in Gotham soon, but at the moment she can't quite be there. It's very cute. We love the gays, right? That's awesome. Oh, also, I can't believe I completely forgot this. Harley Quinn asked Montoya out, and Montoya said yes, and they had a date. They had like an actual date that Harley Quinn had to like peace out from a little early because she had an emergency at her house. It was Batman and Barbara trying to free those billionaires, but yes. So they had a date. She had to peace out. She calls her, be like, "Yo, baby cheeks, baby cheeks." That's not a real thing. "Yo, baby girl, I'm so sorry, but I can't be there for you right now. But I'll be back soon. Keep my heart safe." So I'm assuming that's how that call went. But yeah, very cool. Very cool stuff. Point 10. Ghost exists, and Batman stops a classist ghost with the help of a dude named Shade. Sick. Point 11. A failed assassination attempt against Gordon leads to a crazy manhunt on behalf of all the assassins sent, leading to Barbara, some other random cop, Montoya, and Batman attempting to protect Gordon. But it actually turns out the real target is Barbara, and the other cop jobber is actually on the take and is about to shoot Barbara, but is stopped by Batman or Gordon. He's stopped by one of them too. I don't really remember which one he was stopped by, but it was really cool. So yeah, that was point 11. Point 12. Some carnival has kidnappings going on. Hi, this is future Curry D Pastry. Just wanted to let y'all know. As I did earlier in the video, I lost some footage. This is my first time editing a video, so sorry about that. You'll miss some context for this. All I was doing was listing off potential Robin cameos. That's all. Okay, back to the video. Bye-bye. It could just be like, nods to those characters existing. But there's a character named Dickie. I think there's a character named Jason. There's definitely a character named Stephanie, and definitely a character named Carrie. So, could just be coincidence, but 4 for 4, I'd say it's probably a nod, if not an actual cameo from those characters. Assuming it's all of them, could just be references, right? Harvey is the one who invited people to the carnival, and Batman, with the help of Carrie Kelly, inevitably stopped the carny. There's like a very emotional scene here where Batman's like telling the carny to be like, "Yo, you gotta get back into the sun, otherwise you'll burn." The carny's basically a vampire, doesn't like bite people, but like sucks their life force out, right? It's like, "Yo, you gotta come back in before you like burn out." And I don't think she sacrifices her own life, but I do think that like I can't quite remember what happens. I think maybe she like decides to just stay in the sun and like let herself be burned alive. Maybe she's trying to get to Batman quickly and she doesn't make it in time. It's one of those two. Very tragic either way, very sad, but very cool episode. I really like this one. Point 13. Harvey asks to let some of Thorne's men go in court, and he refuses. And he gets acid splashed on his face, and Two-Face is born. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Two-Face then goes on a tour of terror against Thorne and his men, and explodes a dude's house, right? This is kind of the scene I was talking about earlier, right? Batman, seeing the explosion, decides to give chase to Harvey instead of checking to see if the guy is alive, right? Maybe it's because he already assumed he was dead. Maybe not. But this is what I'm talking about, right? This kind of seems immature of Batman, because Batman has always been the guy who puts people first, no matter how bad they are. And right now, I don't think he's really doing that. It might be because he's like, "Oh, I have to go stop Harvey immediately because he'll hurt more people." But I also don't quite think that's the motivation that he has for chasing Harvey. I think he just wants to chase Harvey because he's like his best friend, which like I get it, right? But I don't know. It seems very immature. You know what I mean? Or immature of him. But yes. So this is one of those issues, but it kind of makes sense a little bit, just given how cold this Batman is. I mean, he's calling Alfred Pennyworth like that. It's cold as fuck, you know. So Alfred then saves Batman by taking out the Batcar. Batman, I think, is like shot or caught in like falling debris from the fire. But yeah, Batman finally begins to call Alfred, not Pennyworth. And then while this is happening, Harvey kind of corners Thorn at his home. But before he can pull the trigger on Thorn, Thorn's kid gets in the way. And no matter how far Harvey has fallen, no matter how cold Two-Face, the other personality of him, is, he can't fucking kill a kid. You know what I mean? Which I think is not a redeeming quality, but a noble quality, at least. And that enables Batman to kind of come and stop the horde of men that are on Harvey, and Thorn, stop the horde of men that Thorn has now surrounding Harvey, and also stops Harvey from making a quote-unquote mistake of killing Thorn, right? So now Barbara and Batman must protect Dent, as he's agreed to testify against Thorn. Thorn sends Flash after them, and Dent throws himself in front of a bullet meant for Barbara, dying, right? So Batman also holds a gun and almost uses it to kill Thorn, which is incredibly unlike Batman, but I'm sure I don't have to tell, hopefully, many of you that, right? But yeah, that's basically the show in a nutshell. He's about to use the gun, and then he throws it away. Final scene of the show, we get a little teaser for Joker. Killer stuff. I really love the fact that they're saving the Joker, who is not only the most iconic Batman villain, but I think arguably maybe the best villain the DC universe has to offer in the first place. I really like they're saving it for a second season, because that's a very bold choice, and B, it means Joker can't monopolize all like the attention and screen time in season 1, right? Whereas I think in season 2 it's going to be much more focused on like Batman v Joker with like little scuffles between Batman and other villains along the way. But that's neither here nor there. That's the whole show. That's the whole show in a nutshell. Summarize the rest of it in 12 minutes, so we made good on time. But here's the thing we haven't done yet, which is answer the big question. Was all of this even good? So, was it any good? Well, the way to answer this is in two parts, as I've explained in my inaugural video. Shameless plug. Y'all should go check out that video to better understand this channel, and this video, and all other future TBQ videos, right? So what were my expectations for this show, right? Well, I knew Bruce Timm was working on it, and he also worked on Batman the Animated Series, and the art style was very reminiscent of the show. So high. High would be my answer. My expectations were probably higher than they deserved to be. I thought the show was disappointing, right? It's more that I think I expected too much of the show. I think when I saw the art style, I was just kind of whisked back away to my childhood. And the thing about nostalgia is that nothing will really ever match the way your nostalgia views something. You know what I mean? Like I have memories in my head of like how awesome Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, all these shows were. And I think if I'm trying to be more objective about it, they weren't quite as amazing as I remembered. But anytime I go back and I watch them, I have those nostalgia glasses on. I love them every time. And I think that's the issue maybe with nostalgia, is that it can set up unrealistic expectations for future projects. That having been said, this show did fail to meet those sky-high expectations. It's not bad, but it did fail to meet those high expectations. So now we get to part 2 of part 1. We get to the second part of the question, right? Did it try to do something new? And the short answer is, yeah, absolutely it did, right? Starting Harvey is morally gray, but giving him some redemption towards the end. Harley having nothing to do with the Joker, that's fucking awesome. Being like weirdly like Robin Hood, that's great. Montoya and Harley being super into each other, loved it. Loved all of that. That was awesome. That was killer. That was great. So yeah, it not only did it try, but it succeeded in its new endeavors that it was trying to go forward with, right? And then the final part, was it fun? Listen, I like the art style, right? And obviously, I really like the way some of these women look, you know what I'm saying? And obviously, I like Batman. So, yes, it was fun. It was great. Even considering the issues I had with it, it was still really enjoyable. Enjoyable enough to the point that I actually binge watched the entire show in one night. It was awesome. It was great. I really liked it. I'm really excited for season 2. Right. So considering all three of these points, the show was solid. It's a fun show. It's a good show. It's not mind blowing. It's not amazing. It didn't blow my expectations out of the water, right? I'm not gonna glaze the show up, but it's a good watch. I think it's a great watch, and I think if you like Batman, you'll like the show for sure. So definitely peep the show, right? As always, I have been the Curry D Pastry. Hopefully it'll be Curry D Pastry, like right there. Unless I got lazy, in which case it'll just probably be me doing this and you guys laughing at me, which haha, that would be fun, I guess. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to almost shoot a gun at that like and sub button. Or whatever other buttons you want. Or don't. I'm not your dad. And until next time, I'll see you sweet and spicy people later. Peace.